So, welcome back, guys. I hope you've all been responsible and not drinking these beers in sequence. So now we have the second beer in the range, which is called the Revenge, and that is brewed with Napa Beer from Pamplona in Spain. And Wayne's going to tell you a little bit about that as I begin to pour the beer.
So, hopefully you've joined us for the first video and you heard a little bit about the series and the range in which these beers ascend in alcoholic strength. So the second beer is a 12% Imperial Stout. They're all Imperial Stouts, but this one in particular is a Maple and Pecan. Is that right? Maple and Pecan Imperial. Yeah. Maple and Pecan. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Easier for you to say.
Maple and Pecan Imperial Milk Stout.
So yeah, Maple and Pecan Imperial Milk Stout.
You clearly didn't drink enough of the first beer.
Yeah, I should have had some maple on my pancakes in the first beer. So 12%, so a little bit stronger. So to get that extra strength, we've used a combination of extra malt. So the malt gives us the sugar that then ferments into alcohol later on. But we've also used some additives to help boost that. So we've got some, is it maltodextrin in this one?
Yeah, maltodextrin's an unfermentable sugar, which most people would recognise as what makes candy floss. So yeah, it just gives sweetness, it gives body, but without contributing to actual alcoholic strength.
And then dextrose, that does give us the strength as well as the...
I don't think we've got dextrose in this one.
How did? What was the main difference then? Just the malt between the 11 and the 12%? So just a...
Yeah, just used more malt. When we brewed here at our old site, we had a small kit. So one of the things that we would do to boost the strength of our beers is we might occasionally add different sources of sugar in. Now we've got a ridiculous sized mash tun. We don't particularly need to add sugar to boost strength, and the risk of adding sugar is it's entirely fermentable, so it ends up making the beer drier than you might perhaps want it to be.
So one of the things that we did when we moved to the new production brewery, well, it feels like a year ago, but it was only a few months back, officially moved in there. We spec'd the brew house up to do best of both worlds. So we have a mash tun and effectively one piece of brewing kit to brew your standard strength sessionable beers. So for us that'd be about between 4 and 5% pale ale, and then we had a specific mash tun made to be able to brew these big Imperial Stouts, so to be able to comfortably make a 7.5% stout. And then when we want to make something like this, which is 10% plus, it can still accommodate that. We just end up with a smaller yield at the end. So big, sticky, intense sugar wort that we can then make into a stronger Imperial beer. You just get less of it.
And I think you'll really appreciate that by the time we get to the fifth beer in the series, which is like wading through treacle. Yeah. It's the thickest beer we've ever made by some distance. And the fabricator that we've used up the road, 6 Fab Deck, think we're absolutely bonkers. So ordinarily, if you were commissioning a new kit, you'd do a couple of easy things to kind of ease your way in and see what the limitations are of the system. Yeah. And we were told that the new mash tun would accept maybe 2 tons. So we're like, right, we're going to put 3 tons in. Here we go.
So yeah, 3 tons of malt gives you a lot of sugar at the end. Back onto this specific beer. So Maple and Pecan Imperial Stout. So you get the maple flavour coming through. You got that nice sweetness that reminds you of maple and pancakes. The pecan's more subtle. It comes through in the aftertaste.
So one thing we should say is this beer originally had its origins in our 4th birthday, because Napa Beer was supposed to be coming across and joining us at our annual birthday event here, and that was like the month after lockdown. So naturally that got cancelled. So we picked up again with Jamie at Napa Beer saying, we're going to do something for the 5th birthday. We don't think we can do it in person, but we'd like to pick up that beer idea that we had and try and do it as a virtual thing, and it's going to be part of this horror series now. And I promise I'll get you at some point if we can do it.
Yeah, so the other challenge, obviously, with all the lockdown restrictions, is getting the actual finished beer to the different breweries we worked with on them. So getting the beer to some of the breweries is dead straightforward because we're in the same country or we're in adjoining countries. Getting the beer across to Spain for this is proving quite difficult with Brexit.
But Jamie's he said, don't even try. Just wait until I'm in the country next and I'll have it then.
So yeah, we've got some set to one side ready for him. So hopefully you'll get the non-barrel aged but the aged version, Jamie. So cheers. So in addition to the beers themselves, we asked you guys to send us some questions through to give you a bit more of a background about what we were thinking when we did this, or to answer any specific questions you had. So you guys have sent through a few questions, so we're going to work our way through them, and hopefully we'll answer anything you've came up with.
So we're going to alternate. So do you want me to read the first one?
Go for it.
So one of my favourite ever beers was Flat Pack Fika Fuel.
I like that one as well. That's not yours.
No, this is Andrew McGuigan's. One of his favourite ever beers was Flat Pack Fika Fuel, and it was introduction to the Brew York Strong Stout style featuring nuts. What are your favourite nuts to brew with, and do you have any combinations of certain nuts and other ingredients that you know always work together?
Flat Pack Fika Fuel was Tonka, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't just Tonka. What else did we put in that? It was the most intense Tonka character that we've done in the beer, and I think it was beautiful for it. But we had something else in it. What was it? Tonka, vanilla, and pecan? Does that sound about right?
You won't be able to Google because your phone's filming us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, Andrew, we're going to have to do full-on confession here. So these days we don't work with actual nuts. It's something we've tried to do in the past, but the flavour of a nut is incredibly difficult to get into beer. For one, it's generally oil-based, and oil and beer is not a good thing. It's going to screw up your head retention, and you need a stupid amount to try and get any kind of flavour character in. And then you do run this huge allergenic risk, not only to the beer that you're creating there, but all of the other beers that you're going to be producing in that facility. And there are strict regulations about what you can do when you have peanuts or other forms of nuts in your building. So quite frankly, the easiest way to avoid all of that is to just not work with nuts.
Yes.
So we now use nut flavourings. I think we've got a good source on some things that very accurately represent the flavour of these nuts without those concerns.
We did quite a bit of research at the time, drinking lots of different beers that are out there. Some of our favourite beers that exist are nut flavoured beers, and then we didn't realise that they didn't contain nuts until we started doing this research.
Right, the Belgian Beaver's peanut butter milk stout
really
from the US. Epic beer, never seen a peanut in its life.
Noah, Omnipolo Noah.
Yeah, indeed.
Or the Buxton, mine's gone blank.
Yellow Belly?
Yellow Belly. All these beers, I mean, we may have incorrectly named some people, some breweries there who may use nuts in the production of those beers, but I don't think they do. And yeah, the flavourings give us the cupboard where we get really intense aroma in particular, because that's what really helps you with the tasting of these nut flavours. And then it reduces the risk of any sort of allergens, like Lee said. So technically, because we haven't used nuts in the production of the beer, we don't really need to put the nut warning on there, but we do just as more as a precaution than anything else. When we buy the flavourings, they do come with may contain nuts warning, so we use that warning on our cans.
Yeah. So we have to follow through and put that same warning on, and I think on our part and their part, that is just us both not wanting to be sued.
Yeah.
So I am confident that there wouldn't be any allergenic reaction to this, but at the same time, if you are highly allergenic in some way to any form of tree nut or ground nut, then I would hope you would have the sense to avoid beers that mention nuts.
So yeah, that relates to a question we got from Jake Tattersdale as well, asking if we were planning on doing a nut-free version of these beers. Yeah, like we said, they don't actually contain nuts; it's nut flavourings. If you are severely nut allergenic, then we can't recommend you try them, but yeah, we're confident that they wouldn't have an allergic reaction. We just don't want to risk that with people's health. So yeah, unless you've got an anaphylactic pen handing around, I wouldn't recommend you try it. But yeah, it's quite hard to.
I'd like to see you try and say that after the fifth beer. Yeah. So next question we have is from Steve Parkin, and he runs the Lion's Den Micro Pub in Bristol. And he said, great to see some amazing collabs. Any plans / chance of a collab with the Bristol Brewery? New Bristol Brewery would be an awesome option.
It's funny you should say that. So we are actually heading down to Bristol for Bristol Craft Beer Festival in a month or so's time. And one of the things we're trying to get lined up before we go there is a collab with a Bristol-based brewery. We can't tell you the details of that yet because we haven't had it agreed, but we will be doing one, and yeah, we've got some exciting stuff to do. Our packaging manager used to work for a Bristol brewery, used to be head brewer at a certain Bristol brewery, so okay. We'll see how things pan out. So what inspired the horror movie motif on the can artwork and the general theme? That's from Jason Thompson.
Well, I think we are both movie buffs, and in particular we like horror, and I think my partner Polly is not into horror. she would say, "What are you watching that crap for?" Probably
Craft.
craft. Whereas your partner Sally, both of you are really into the horror genre, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's just something that we grew up watching. It was, and then now it's something that just enjoy that little bit of a break from the norm and a bit of a scare here and there. And yeah, we thought it was such a cool theme. Given that it's our 5th birthday, and we wanted to do tie it into the 5 somehow. It kind of restricts your choice. There's not that many bands have like 5th albums, or I mean there are actually, but not enough to.
I mean, I can't scientifically prove this, but if you did a Venn diagram of rock music, beer, and horror, I think that little bit in the middle where they all overlap would be quite big. For whatever reason, people who like beer, particularly dark beer, tend to like horror, and yeah. Well, anyway. So one thing we've not covered in talking about this beer is the artwork on this particular beer. So the brewery we've collaborated with on this one is Napa Beer, and they're from Pamplona in Spain, and that is the place where the running of the bulls comes from, where some idiots, I don't know why you would want to do this, run the streets and are chased by bulls who occasionally catch and gore them. So rather than me, I'll stick to the pubs that are now open and having some pints. So we thought it was quite appropriate that this scene is where we first see our heroine being pursued by our villain, and this time it has morphed into Halloween and Michael Myers. And we did put a little nod to the bulls, so the sign in the middle has a bull's skull on.
The film itself, if you aren't aware, is the 5th in the series from Halloween. So Michael Myers makes his appearance on the can. So it was called The Revenge, and hence the name of the beer.
And I remember, when did I host a Halloween party? And you came as Michael Myers once, didn't you?
I said this to Nadia when we were looking for props. I'm sure there's a Michael Myers mask on.
Yeah, you came in a blue boiler suit with a Michael Myers mask on. Yeah.
Scares the shit out of Sal every time I put that mask on. Hide in the corner.
And there is kind of a nod to another film or two on here. So if you look at the sign, we've got it going towards the ghost dimension or to safety. So this is one of those kind of comic horror tropes where there's clearly a direction in which our heroine or our escapees should be going, but for some reason they run in the direction of clear danger, like the cabin in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of things that were flagged up in the kind of comic horror genres, like I Know What Did You Last Summer and Scream.
Scary movie,
yeah, those kind of things.
So one of the films that we really wanted to do a nod to, we already have brought a beer out in the past, do with a nod to this, but we couldn't because there wasn't 5 films, so it was The Evil Dead. So yeah, it was a bit of a, that's very much something that we all like to watch, and the fact that it's a bit of a comedic horror with the excess gore and stuff, it's just so Revenge, Maple and Pecan Imperial Stout. We've also put quite a lot into barrel, like we've done with the other beers. There's 6 200-litre barrels.
Yeah, and for some beers we went for one thing for all 6. For some beers, as with this one, we split it between 2 different types of barrel. So we've gone half of it into red wine barrels and half of it into Jack Daniel's bourbon barrels.
We mentioned the splits on another beer to somebody else the other day, and they said, "Oh, you're going to blend them back in?" I went,
Well, if you tune in for the next video, you'll find out which one that was about.
But I think both of these different barrels will have a different effect on the beer. So in general, we do a lot of bourbon barrel aging. Bourbon's just a really nice flavour to go with dark imperial stouts. But one of the best results of the barrel aged beer we've done so far was our cherry tongue cocoa, which we barrel aged in red wine barrels. So it brought a really different aspect out to the beer. So my partner, who's a huge red wine fan, absolutely loved that beer. It doesn't obviously taste like red wine, but it has a lot of the characteristics like the oakiness and things like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this beer, but hopefully you'll enjoy the barrel aged version as well in a year's time for our 6th birthday.